Chapter 2, folks, so let's get to chapter 2 of Jonah. This is the great storm happened, and even the sailors said, Lord, we earnestly pray, don't let us perish on account of this man's life, and do not put his innocent blood on us. It wasn't that innocent, but they were praying to a God they didn't even know to stop the storm, to save their lives and not hold them accountable. But we're heaving this monkey overboard. And they heaved him overboard. And of course, the Lord appointed a great fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the stomach of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, what does that mean? Well, was it a whale? We're never told it was a whale. That's just modern Protestant interpretation. It had to be a big enough fish to swallow a man, so what do you got? You got a whale. It can't be a predator like a shark or anything, because that would bite him in half, and we need Jonah whole. So it's always been assumed it was a whale, but we're not sure what it was. Nobody will ever know. God knows. And maybe he'll tell us when we get to heaven. It was a mackerel, you guys, a mackerel. Really big mackerel. Anyway, that's not important. People say, well, God could have told us what kind of fish it was. I'll tell you what, find a guy named Jonah, go fishing with him, shove him in the water and see what eats him. Yeah, see what eats him. But he was in the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. Now, I need to tell you and explain to you, because a lot of people don't understand this, and it's the same with Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was buried about, I'm going to say 5 p.m. on Friday. And he rose from the dead before dawn. Because remember, the 3 ladies went to the tomb and it was still dark. The sun hadn't even come up. So let's say he rose at 5 a.m. on Sunday, what we call Sunday. Of course, in that day and age, there's a whole different calendar. So you got about 7 hours of Friday, and you got about 5 hours of Sunday, and you got the whole 24 of Saturday. Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days. How can that be? Actually, it was a day and a half, maybe. Not even, 5 and 7 is 12, so a day and a half, maybe. Well, why do we say 3 days? Well, in the Hebrew calendar, a day counts for any 24-hour period or part thereof. And that's just the way they went. Jesus was born, as we have deduced from the scripture, somewhere in December. Was it the 25th? We don't know that. We do know that the 25th was a time of the Lord's blessing upon the people and his message to the Magi and everything else, saying, go and look for the king born to you this night, blah, 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 blah. And we do know that that was then, and from the 25th to the 6th of January, that is what we call Epiphany, when the Magi showed up. Remember, they had to travel all the way from wherever they were around and get to Jesus. But the soldiers at Herod, they came, visited Jesus, and then went away. Herod sent his soldiers to kill all children 2 years and younger. Why would he do that? Well, because if Jesus was born on the 25th, let's say of 4 BC, or thereabouts, that's what the rumor is, and now the Magi have come and they are in January of 5 BC. They came on the 6th, remember? After the new year, how old would Jesus be? Well, he'd be roughly about, 11 days old, 12 days old. But in the Hebrew mind, in the first century mind, how old would he be? He'd be 2 years old. Because they look as the same as a day or any part thereof, or a year or any part thereof. So Herod's order was to go and kill all the babies from 2 years and younger. That way he can be assured that we got Jesus, or this king. So you got to remember that. Now Jonah, and Jonah is referenced by Christ a lot. Jonah says, you want a sign? I'll give you the sign of Jonah. Why the sign of Jonah? Well, because you will kill this body or tear down this temple, and I will rise it up in 3 days. Well, what were the 3 days? Part of Friday. They had to get him buried before the sunset because that was Sabbath. And that would defile everybody if they left a dead guy, a Jewish dead guy, not buried. So that it was a hurry-up kill. That's why they came back and smashed all their knees and everything to kill these 3 guys, get them down, get them buried before Sabbath, because they wanted to stay clean before the Lord. No thought at all about the fact they just killed the Son of God, but they wanted to be holy for the Sabbath. So they got him in the ground about 5 p.m. probably. He spent Saturday, and then he was up before the ladies got there. So it must have been pretty early, because they were up and on their way to the tomb before the sun had even risen. Blasted women. That's why we have the sunrise service every year. 45 years I've been doing the service because of 3 little overachievers. Anyway, when he says, tear down this temple and I will raise it up in 3 days, as in the sign of Jonah, this is what they're talking about. So how long was Jonah in the fish? Well, I'm going to say probably around this same area. He got swallowed in the afternoon. He spent Saturday in the whale. Sunday morning, God said, all right, let him go. And he was probably barfed up on land. That could have been a YouTube video. Oh, hi, how you doing? Ever spend a weekend in the whale? Anyway, so when you see this, it's not that it's all that crucial, but Jesus references it twice in the Gospels about the sign of Jonah. What does that mean? Well, it means you're going away for 3 days. So if an angel appears to you and says, after the sign of Jonah, just, cancel your weekend plan because you're away for 3 days. All right, let's look at chapter 2. Remember now, Jonah's in the fish. And Jonah prayed to the Lord God. I love this line. Jonah prayed to the Lord God from the stomach of the fish. Well, there's his first good idea. When you think about it, how many of us have been in the same kind of trouble, on our knees, finally brought to our knees, and we say, well, maybe I better pray to God. We could have avoided the whole fish thing. And he said, I called out of my distress to the Lord, and he answered me. I cried from the depth of Sheol. That's about as close as you're going to get right there. And thou didst hear my voice. What he's doing is reciting a psalm. This is a psalm. I cried from the depths of Sheol, and he did hear my voice. For thou hast cast me into the deep, into the heart of the sea, and the current engulfed me. And all thy breakers and billows have passed over me. So I said, I have been expelled from thy sight. Nevertheless, I will look again toward the holy temple. Water encompassed me to my very soul. The great deep engulfed me. Weeds were wrapped around my head. I descended to the roots of the mountain. The earth with its bars was around me forever. But thou hast brought me has brought up my life from the pit, O Lord my God. Even while I was fainting away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer returned to me and came to thee. Into thy holy temple, for those who regard vain idols forsake their faithfulness. But instead I will sacrifice to thee with the voice of thanksgiving. That which I have vowed I will pay. For salvation is only from the Lord. Then the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah up onto the dry land. Wow. What do you think's going on here? I mean, it's bad enough we got a guy in a whale, but now this incredible prayer. When did he get so holy?
Probably 5 minutes after he got swallowed.
Probably 5 minutes. You know, when would we get so holy? 5 minutes after we got swallowed by whatever it was after us. You know, men spend a lot of their time in life trying to run away from God. They don't want to be involved, and we think we can do it nonchalantly. See, if I don't go to church, then, you know, I'll have no reason to worry about God. And if I don't hang around with Christian people, then I'll have no worries about God, will I? And if I don't do the Christmas thing or the Easter thing and all of that, then I won't need to worry about this Jesus Christ thing. I mean, God was tough enough, but now, Jesus. You know, getting to be a real bother out there to us pagans who enjoy paganism. And this is hypothetical, folks. I really do believe in Jesus. Anyway, the point is, that is the plight of the common man. And more, we just say, well, let's take God out of the schools. And everybody says, that was so horrible, now we got nasty kids. Well, the fact of the matter is, outside of God, you're going to have nasty kids anyway. I mean, what else have they got to reference? A guy that does everything good, that helps people who he doesn't even know, who loves people who nobody else loves, who touches people that are sick and diseased? Why would we want to teach them about a guy like that? Let's talk about, I don't know, Kanye or whatever his name is. You know, he's got 19 women on the lam and he makes zillions of dollars for doing nothing. That's who we want to focus on. That's who we want to be like. And the kids scream, ah! None of them are in church. They're screaming for people that look like they're successful, they're billionaires, a life of perfection. I was reading this morning about all the celebrities, including Bing Crosby and 2 others, that their whole life they fought one thing, and that was the temptation to kill themselves. Because they just couldn't deal with life as it was. And we look at those people and say, what a life. Wow. And all that stuff, at least not yet. When did Jonah get holy? Well, he grew up a Jew, right? He knew of God, right? So he must have been trained in the temple, as all little boys would have been. Sadly, you girls would have stayed home and learned to make bread and set a proper Sabbath table. Well, the old brain is just, you can hear it, it's rusty. And you would sit home. Haven't you ever seen Fiddler on the Roof? Tevye gets home, and what's his wife doing? Wash your hands, it's almost a Sabbath. And she's got the table all set up and the candles all put up there. You know what I'm talking about? Get out and read a book, people. Watch a movie. Fiddler on the Roof. But she was a proper mom, see? And she couldn't deal with life when it wasn't proper. Well, that's kind of who Jonah was. Jonah was I'm going to say, this is a modern term, I realize they wouldn't understand it in this day and age, but a casual Christian. What does a casual Christian do? Well, when somebody dies, we go to church and bury them, right? Of course we do. Why? Because we're Christians. We loved that guy, kind of. And we're going to pay respects to his family. That's a decent thing to do, right? Okay. Christmas comes along, what do? We go to church, and we like the hymns and the songs, and if we have little children, we put angel wings on them and shove them up on the stage. Say, dance around with your wings for a while. At Easter time, what do? It's not as much fun as Christmas, let's face it. But yet it is a holy day. We better show up at church and, make sure everybody sees us. Chris Chanter was in church today. Make a note. Because when you stand in eternity and God asks you, was Chanter in church on Easter Sunday? Yeah. You can say, he was. I saw him there.
Yeah, that's going to be high.
We shook hands twice. That's a casual Christian. The rest of the year, where is he? Oh, he's fishing in his boat. He's gone to Disney World or Muffin World or whatever world he wanted to go to. You know, he's out doing this, he's out doing that. Saturday night, he's dancing, you know, the do-si-do in some barn in Oviedo. When does he get holy?
In trouble.
Bingo. When the doctor says, I'm sorry, Mr. Chanter, but you've been taking valsartan for over 15 years. And you've got cancer in just about every aspect of your being, even your character. The jokes have been off a little lately. That's when I go, oh, dear Lord, I better go to church and tell Tom to fix this. Can Tom fix that?
No.
I don't know. I can help you pray to the Lord. Can the Lord fix it? Well, quite definitely He can. Will He fix it? That's another question, isn't it? When do we get holy? Just when we get in trouble? Get swallowed by our fish, whatever that fish may be? You know, the psalmist, quite frankly, said when it comes to religion, he opened his eyes and he said, what? Praise the Lord for this day, the day the Lord hath made. It is my responsibility to do two things in this day. What is it?
Today's the day the Lord has made. I say it.
You were
every day.
close. It's 15 times in the Psalms, by the way. Quote any one of them you want, but it's always the same two requirements. What?
Rejoice and be glad. There we go.
Rejoice and be glad. That's what you got to do. What's that mean? What's that mean to rejoice and be glad? What's that mean to rejoice and be glad? Well, rejoice is a heavenly term. It's to stand in awe, so much in awe of God that you just can't keep quiet. You know, like some rock star on stage, you go, yeah! And you start doing that nonsense in the front row, you know, and everybody's doing that nonsense. And you don't even know why you're doing that. But you know that He's your superstar. He's right there dancing around. And you are just, the inner you is just wanting to let it go. That's what rejoice means. So when we say rejoice, I want you to wake up and go, ah! Be glad you're still alive. I do that every morning. It's just I can't do this much anymore. It's just, oh, ow, oh, ow. So I stretch, you know. And Carol says, stop making those stupid noises. We have that argument now about every morning.
How are you rejoicing?
I do. I have tried that and she won't listen. To rejoice means to acknowledge the greatness, the power, the might, and the gift of God, which is the new day for you. When you woke up, your eyes open. Bing! You know what that means? You're not dead. You have a whole nother, hopefully, 24 hours to worship God. Or at least 12 before you fall asleep. To be glad in it means not only you acknowledging the gift, the power, the might, the glory, and the mercy, but you receive it. And you receive it as a cherished, beautiful, genuine gift that you dearly love. You know, when people give you that you know, scarf with all the stupid colors and stuff on it, and you go, oh, geez, I never wear that. Oh, thank you, I love it. I've always wanted one of these. Liar, liar, pantyhose on fire. That's not a scarf you've always wanted. You will never wear it. It will end up in a Goodwill shop somewhere. But to rejoice, acknowledgement of God's gift. To be glad is to say, God, I really love this thing. This is so awesome. And mean it. And mean it. Thank you for this gift. I've been thinking around that, like that, in this direction. Particularly after the valsartan thing. I don't know how many days I got to look. But last night I was coming to, I do a lot of thinking now. God has given me a great gift about 10 years ago. I bought a spa. And that's God's great gift to me because by the end of the day, everything hurts. And I don't want to take medicine for it, so what do? Well, I have a wife to yell at me, "You're not going to get that stupid spark in tonight, are you?" I say, "Yes, Lord, thank you for that gift too." I don't rejoice quite as much about that because, no, I do. But if I get in there and just let my mind run free for an hour or two, I can get out and I'm practically pain-free. I can go to bed and I can actually sleep. I'm not taking a leave. You know, I know a couple of men in this very church that take 2, 4, 6 a leave a day just to get through the day. That's a lot of chemicals to push into your body. A couple hours in the spa does the same thing. Well, it's in the spa I do some of my finest thinking. Kind of like when you're naked in the shower and you were trying to remember the words to that Jimmy Buffett song and you can't. And then suddenly you get a great idea and say, "Man, I should try that. We should do that at church." Not get naked in the shower with you, but what you thought about while you were naked in the shower. I'm not naked in my spa either. I'm wearing a bathing suit. Anyway, my metaphors here are getting a little difficult. The point is, when we quiet ourselves and when we calm ourselves and when we really use this little thing that the psalmist of 119 calls spiritual inventory of ourselves. When did I get holy? Why did I get holy? And how holy am I now still? That's when we start thinking, have I really rejoiced and been glad in today? You know, if you had a visit from God, and I can attest to this in a way, and I'm not going to tell you why, but I'm going to say, you tend to regard that as an incredible gift. That God would take the time to talk to Shirley or, anybody in this room, or me. Well, you're a holy guy. Well, I wasn't always a holy guy. But that's an incredible gift that he would take the time. Even the psalmist cried out, "What is man that God should ever give him any attention at all?" Right? What is man that God should concern himself with us? We're nothing. And yet when he does, is not a great gift. I want to ask you again, when did Jonah get holy? Well, he grew up a Jew. I like to liken that some, and no disrespect to anybody, but in my own life, I grew up a Catholic. And people say, "Well, are you a Christian?" "I'm Catholic." "Aren't they the same thing?" "Oh, no, Catholics are much holier." Why? Why? Because they said they are. Okay. When did I get holy? Well, I grew up 12 years in the Catholic Church under 2 very strong, and they were genuine Christians, my mom and dad. Church was never an option in my house, ever, until we were 18. Well, for my brothers, they had to endure that. Me, Dad died at 12, so I had to pass for 6 years. But I still took Mom to church every day until I went away to college. Then I was free forever. When did Chanter get holy? Well, he was holy his whole life because he was in church his whole life. I was an altar boy. I did the midnight mass. I served communion. I loved those big wafers the priests get. The little ones that the people get, but the big ones the priests get, we used to get, borrow a few, and we'd go home, put peanut butter and stuff on us, and make crunchy peanut butter sandwiches. So awesome. I'm going to hell for that, that's for sure. Lucy, you got some splaining to do when you get to heaven. When did I get home? You ever ask yourself that? Because somewhere in your life, you either you have either been eaten by a big fish, or you had a close call with a big fish. That's figuratively somewhere in your life you came to the realization that Tom Chanter, or whoever you are, isn't all that. I like the little song in our silver book. If it had not been for the Lord on my side, the next verse is, where would I be? If it had not been for the Lord on my side. You see, we tend to think in our minds that when it comes to Christianity, it's up to us to shoulder the burden of the entire salvific initiative. Oh yes, God donated His Son to die for us. But it's up to us to learn to understand and then shoulder the strength and the weight of salvation. First for myself and then for sure. Nothing could be farther from the truth. There's a little verse in the Bible that most of us know, but have never really carefully considered in terms of ourselves. You know what that verse is? Even while I was His enemy, a sinner, He loved me and died for me. That was Paul, of course. Even while I was a sinner. You know what sinner means? Far away from God. Not even close. Not even close. God's the fan, this is Chanter. Over here. This is the casual, nonchalant Christian. If I don't go to church, I won't have to worry about God. If I don't hang around Christians, I won't have to worry about God. If I get on a boat and sail to Tarsus, I won't have to worry about God and ask myself, when did I get holy? The best decision Jonah ever made was to get on that boat. Because he came face to face, undeniably, with the almighty living God. And God looked down and said, how you like me now? You see, we think we have to burden this whole shoulder weight of the salvific initiative, when in fact, if left to ourselves, we are running headlong into the darkness to hide away from God. I'm going to preach a little bit on this morning. So you guys are getting like, you know, those little trailers that run before your movie comes on. We're running headlong into the darkness, not to love God, to get away from Him. But see, it's in that darkness that we come face to face with Him. Now, what did I just hit? Oh. And then that giant face comes out and says, how do you like me now? Chanter, we need to talk. Oh, no, not the talk. What we don't understand is God's been chasing us the whole time. And we run into the darkness. That's probably where we're going to find Him. God's been chasing us. Jesus told a story about a guy who had 99 lambs and they were so cute. And one wandered off into the darkness, trying to get away, do his own thing. You know what I'm saying? I'm my own man. My knees and head shall bow to me. Invictus. Right up until the angel showed up and said, yo, Invict, get over here. Watch this. And he couldn't breathe, and he fell to his knees, and he bowed his head, and he fell over on the deck. Okay, tell me again about that no knee or head bowing thing. I am the captain of my own soul, he said before. What I do is of God. Boom, angel shows up. Let's see again that surrender scene. You're doing real good. Keep it up. I'm dying here. You've always been dying, dummy. Good thing I showed up. I know how to fix this. Well, fix it. When did Jonah get holy? Greatest gift God gave Jonah was a boat and a fish. Well, dinner's usually included, right? He just didn't think he would be the dinner. Jonah prayed to God. This whole chapter is about one thing, what? Rejoicing and being glad. Acknowledging God for all that God is. And finally, having the good sense to receive it genuinely. Genuinely. And Jonah prayed to his Lord from the stomach of the fish and said, Lord, I'm in distress. You think? Really? And he answered me. I cried for help from the depth of Sheol. Sheol's kind of a reference to hell. You know, doesn't get a whole lot worse than this. You're sushi now. Some Chinese guy's going to go, oh, look, Jonah says you love it. He's going to sprinkle some sauce on you. Oh, very good. I cried for help because I was literally hanging by a thread over hell. And thou didst hear me. Of course he did. He's been chasing you for years. For thou had cast me into the deep. No, I didn't. You cast yourself into the deep. At the heart of the seas, the current engulfed me, and the breakers and the billows passed over me, and I've been expelled from the sight of God. Nevertheless, I will look again if I have an eyeball left to the holy temple. For water has encompassed me to the very soul. The great deep engulfed me. Weeds are wrapped around my head. That was just a fashion thing. Weeds are wrapped around my head. I descended to the root of the mountains, you know, on the bottom of the ocean where the mountains come from. The earth with its bars were around me forever. And thou hast brought up my life from the very pit, O God. That's pretty bad. Anybody go through an experience like that this morning yet? Depth of the sea, forever. I'm toast, I'm history. Nothing I can do about it, and yet God is still here with me. Oh, well, of course he is, because God put me here. No. See, there's the misinterpretation. You put you there. You've been running headlong into that darkness to elude God, to get away from God, whether he's a problem, whether he's an inconvenience, whether you believe in him or not, all this self-awareness crap. The fact of the matter is, your life speaks a whole lot more than your mouth does. You've been running from him your whole life. Your whole life. Fortunately, we have a shepherd that would leave the 99 and chase down this one rogue lamb. Why? Well, because he's one or she's one of God's children too. And he loves her or him as well. And they're vital and they're important to the Lord. Yes, he'll leave the 99 that are faithful and true and solid and go after the rogue. And you know what happens when he finds the rogue? Heaves him up on his shoulders. Doesn't even have to make him walk. Doesn't spank him, doesn't swat him. Heaves him up on his shoulder. He goes back, rejoins him with his family, and he calls for a what? Get my rifle. I'm going to take care of this sheep once and for all. Lamb chops for everybody. No, that's not what he does. He calls all the other sheep herders and says, come with me and let us celebrate and rejoice and be glad. I don't know why I keep pointing to you, because you answered the question. Let us rejoice and be glad, for that which was lost has now been found. That which was doomed to die has been brought back into the fold alive. Best gift God ever gave Jonah was two things, a fish and a boat. Or a boat and fish. And I cried to the Lord from the stomach of a fish. I can't say I've ever done that. Oh, I've cried to him from some weird places, but never from the stomach of a fish. And you think back on those days, you go, man, I wish that never happened. Man, I wish that never. Sometimes those are the greatest gifts. You see, we're not running toward God. We've been spending our life running away from Him, trying to get into the darkness to hide from Him. And the fact of the matter is, God's in the darkness waiting for us. That's where we run into Him, headlong, face to face. And He picks us up and He holds us and He says, don't be afraid. Now I can give you true life if you want it. And you know what? Tomorrow is going to be a day that hopefully you will rejoice and be glad in it. I'm going to give you life itself, and I hope you will receive it genuinely. Right here in the belly of a fish. Or whatever's engulfing you at the time. This was probably the most sincere, saved my butt prayer that has ever been uttered in the gospel. It's even better than the guy on the cross next to Jesus. He was just saying, hey, shut up over there. Stop messing with him. He hadn't done anything wrong. We're up here because we deserve to be up here. We're criminals. Aren't you afraid of anything? This is the Son of God. He hadn't done nothing wrong, and yet you're making fun of him now? And he looked over to Christ and said, you know, remember me when you come into your kingdom. Well, that's just like crying to God from the belly of a fish, isn't it? I wouldn't suggest you wait for the fish before you do that. That's why we have this word where God tells us, learn as a Christian man, as a Christian woman. I don't care how young you are, how old you are, how pretty you are, how smart you are, how talented you are, how vital you are to life. The fact of the matter is, we all stand in need of God's grace. We all stand at one time or another in our own darkness. If we're smart, we'll use that darkness to cry to God and find Him there. Every day that sun rises, we know that's going to happen because the earth is going round, sir. And the sun is stationary, so what's going to happen every day? Sun's going to rise, right? Okay. Simple mechanics. We can explain that away with physics and science and mathematics. Question is, who put that sun there in a perfect distance from the earth? Who made us spin so that we could see, have light and dark, have enough time to grow and enough time to rest, have enough time to, enjoy the summer and hopefully enjoy the winter? We're not just spinning, we're wobbling too. That's what gives us the seasons. It's not that God just had us spinning, but we're wobbling. The sun isn't spinning. The moon isn't spinning. It's orbiting us, but it's not spinning. The dark side of the moon will always be the dark side of the moon. Because it's not spinning. That's why we can't go see Pink Floyd. He's on the dark side of the moon. Joke there. That's a generational thing. I grew up in the 70s, man. Love, peace, and happiness. Anyway, I actually had a shirt that said that. Love, peace, and hippiness. I wore things like that when I was younger. God gives us in Jonah Chapter 2 the reawakening, or hopefully the awareness of, what the psalmist in 119 calls, have you taken a personal spiritual inventory of yourself lately? In Psalm 119, that pilgrim traveling on his way from birth to glorification will do that 3 times in a major way. Once when he's a young man, once when he's a middle-aged man, and once when he's a very old man. Even old guys struggle a little bit. John was put on the island of Patmos, and he asked God, was it true, all that stuff Jesus said? Really? You know what I found out on this trip lately? I did not know this until I went to the church on the hill. It was St. John's Church on the Hill. and it was for John the Apostle, that in Rome they grabbed him and he was starting to be boiled in oil. But Caesar went crazy because he said, I've already got 2 martyrs on my hand. Don't give him a 3rd. Caesar actually saved John's life. He was badly burned accordingly on his legs. But he said, take him out and drop him off at the island of Patmos and let him die out there. I don't need another dang martyr. Because with the killing of Paul and the killing of Peter in Rome by Nero, Christianity exploded. He thought it would make him run away and hide. Quite the opposite. People said, if these holy apostles could make such a sacrifice, then why am I hiding away from God? So Caesar finally came to say, don't kill any more of these guys, at least not here in Rome. So that's how John ended up on the island of Patmos. Now a very old, slightly crispy old man. And he asked God the question, was it true, the promises, the glories that Jesus spoke of? Because it sure doesn't look like it from our perspective. You know why? Because a lot of us are in the belly of a great fish. And God came to him and said, come with me, John. And John escaped the fish and saw the glories of heaven. And God even told him to write these down and go tell the people it's all true. Even as they are engulfed in darkness, it's still true. And I'm looking for them, every dang one of them. Go tell them that, John. And he did. Now, it goes on to say that John is a very old man. After he wrote his word, his gospel, the Revelation, gave it to the people in the churches, he went to the city of Odessa. And he went to rest one day. He said his vesper prayers, laid down. And the Lord said, well done, good and faithful servant. And John went home in peace in his sleep. The only apostle that did not die a martyr's death. However, that didn't mean he didn't suffer. He suffered a lot. That's the story of John. That's not part of Jonah, but we all ask these questions. Lord, are you there? I'm here. Lord, have I still got a chance? You still kind of do. And Jesus said 2 men went up to pray. One was so full of himself, he couldn't stand to look at him. The other fell on his face on the back of the church, wouldn't even dare approach the altar, and simply uttered, God, do I still have a chance? And he heard those words, sure you do. I'm right here. Picked him up, hoisted him on his shoulders, and carried him back to the family. What's chapter 2 of Jonah about? Well, you got to answer that question. Do you need to answer it, Sandy, Katie, Shirley, Andrea, Chris, everybody in this room? When did you get holy? And do you remember it as the gift that God intended it to be? When did you get holy? I'm not asking when you became a Christian. I'm asking, when did you stand face to face with the living God and he had a chance to say, hey, how do you like me now? I'm lost, Lord. No kidding. I'm dying, Lord. No kidding. I'm perishing, Lord. I got it. It's usually when we're surrounded by darkness. The darkness we've been using to avoid God our whole life. And the Lord says, I'm still here, Jonah, from the belly of a great fish. I love that. Who ordered the McFish? All right, guys. Next week we'll finish this up, and it's really good.